Okay, so I'm very honoured to be able to meet with Dr. John Veltheim here in New Zealand, because John in fact was the founder of the Body Talk system, but also the creator of MindScape, which of course is life-changing. So John, when did you create MindScape, and what prompted you to develop such an amazing system?
Well, I was always into human potential and particularly interested in the mind. I had studied a lot about the mind, I'd learned hypnotism, all those types of things as a kid, and martial arts, and again using the mind to do it. And I read a lot and looked at very much into the potential of the mind and how we just don't use it anywhere near our potential, because of the way we've been trained to use it in the modern world. And without the right brain involvement and more with left brain. And it became obvious in all the studies I did that we needed to harness the right brain, because you knew it was a much more powerful computer, as it were. And the factor is that the right brain is also where we have our imagination, our visualization. And of course, that's a very creative output. We know some of the great geniuses, it's all imagination and creativity. But the obstacle I had as far as accuracy goes, if I wanted to use it for specific purposes, such as healthcare and things like that, we had to be able to make that more accurate. And the constant fear is, well, I think you've got gallstones, but is it my imagination? And that's where it became the realization that it had to be, we had to overcome that by making it structured imagination. And that's the concept of then bringing in structure, that in MindScape, where we build a particular structure in our mind that creates parameters. And what I found with experimenting with that, it worked because I could check myself, I could explore something, even a human being, and see a tumor or something, and then find out, yes, that's what they had. In other words, you can verify it. And I saw its potential there. I originally actually developed it a little bit to be able to know a lot more about my opponents in martial arts. But once I was in practice, I saw it as extremely valuable, because particularly in those days when you didn't have MRIs, it was very important. For example, if someone had a brain tumor, doctors could not really identify it unless they, because they didn't have MRIs and X-rays didn't show it, they, just by symptoms. And so it ended up, because I was good at it, I had surgeons, send their patients to me to tell them exactly where the tumor is, and what size it was, etc., which I could do. And then when they operated, of course, therefore it was no longer exploratory, and they'd go straight there, and I was right. And because I was right all the time, and that was life and death stuff, so it was important. And so I saw its potential there, but really over the years I've taught it under a lot of circumstances. I've taught it a lot to practitioners because it can be used as focusing your intuition into high accuracy so that you can tell what's going on with somebody. But I went for a long time where I was on a lecture tour with my wife, and we were teaching it all over the world, and we were teaching it to companies like Nestle and the Sheraton chain and the Hilton chain and things like that, and teaching their managers of how to use it to develop their creativity and to get insights in what they need within their business. We had a lot of just normal people who used it either for creative purposes or for business purposes, because you can literally do so many different things with it. I then went into the field of sports, because I was very involved in sports, and the whole concept, it got out there because I trained a lot of top athletes in that, and you used to see them, because before a race at the Olympics you'd see them running the race and rehearsing things in their mind, and the gymnasts, who are going through the motions. And this was all, an expansion of this idea, because we found that when you're doing MindScape, there's other systems now that are similar, and you do techniques in your head, you are training the synapses in order for you to be able to do it in reality. And I remember one time there was a Greek pianist. He was considered a prodigy. He was only 19 and he could play 60 different pieces and all sorts of things. And the newspapers went to see him because normally, you know, they train and practice all the time. And they finally found him down the Gold Coast sunbaking on the beach before his concert. And I said, "Aren't you practicing?" I says, "I am practicing, but you've interrupted me." Because he had his workshop and he had his piano and he was playing everything there. And he pointed out that most classical pianists have a lot of trauma injuries with their fingers, etc., because of all the rehearsal they do. And he says he does all the rehearsals in his mind. The only time his fingers ever touch the keyboard is when he's in concert. And that's why he's a prodigy, because he was utilizing the strongest part of his brain to not only train his fingers, but also to memorize the pieces. But at 19, he could play all those pieces. So I've had it applied, you know, whether it be creative in musicians and artists. We know that some of the famous artists, Salvatore Dali, who does all those strange things, he was known that he used to actually paint them in his head first. And he had his workshop, his art thing, and he would paint them and do all the details. And the beauty of that, you can do it so much quicker, and if there's anything wrong, you can easily get rid of it until he got it right. And then when he actually painted it on canvas, he copied it, you know, and he was actually copying it from what he had done up here. But as he said, it would take ages if he used canvas to work those out. But in a workshop, he could do it. And we also knew Tesla, one of the greatest inventors of all time. He invented the AC/DC motor. He did it all in his head. And he even ran prototypes in his head. And when he got one that worked, he was able to immediately draw the plans, give it to General Electric, and it ran first time. So we're seeing it explored. So at the moment, it's a tool that's been taught by and used by people in many different fields. You know, I then specialize in healthcare as a means of being able to know what's going on with a person. But we've got other instructors who are very heavily into business and management, and they teach it to management. You can use it for communication purposes in dealing with animals, or creative purposes, or just plain and simply, the technique is such that when you go into MindScape, you're actually doing the equivalent of having a strong meditation, and therefore just stress release and stress management. But so the implications are that over the 40 years I've trained thousands of people, and basically from every walk of life and from every different background, because no matter what, if you do anything in life, if you can do it using the right brain and the creativity of the right brain in conjunction with the left brain, you're going to do it far better, far quicker, and with far less stress. So it makes a lot of sense. And the great thing about it is anyone can learn it. It's very easy to learn in one weekend, and you can be very good at it in a very short time. So it's proven very popular. The only reason I'm not heavily teaching it all the time now is, unfortunately, I developed another system called Body Talk, which I'm still developing because it's a big system. And I'm now having to leave it to all the instructors I've trained. But I miss it. I miss it a great deal because it was always so much fun to teach MindScape and see people, you know, stunned at what they could do. And you know, people like you who are teaching it, I'm actually quite jealous of you being able to do it, because I just was talking about it the other day and thinking I've got to do a MindScape course soon. And in fact, I'm intending to. I'm actually told all my staff at the IBA that I'm putting them all through MindScape just so I can teach a course. So yeah, it's been an exciting development, and it just keeps growing. I know scientists who use it. In fact, some of the greatest discoverers in science. We know Einstein used his laboratory in his head, and he was a right brain thinker. That's why he was who he was. And he didn't call it MindScape, but he used to go into his laboratory or into his workshop. And very few people, high achievers, who haven't used it, where that's the reason they were high achievers, is they discovered that if they built a little structure to do their stuff in, their little laboratory or little art studio, and they worked with it within that structure, their creativity flowed far better and was far more creative, or in the case of other things, far more accurate.
And it's building all those neural pathways, isn't it, John?
Yeah.
So that the intuition is accessed easier. and on demand.
And it's building also the left brain pathways, because there's absolutely no doubt. I've done a lot of courses for children in school, and especially low achieving kids, and we're seeing them, within months go from bottom of their class to top of their class, because their brain is just working. Often with the kids with attention deficit, because their right brain is where they want to live because it's stronger, but when they live in their right brain, their left brain doesn't let them get it out and get it associated, and so they struggle, even though they're very bright, And once you give them both and tell them, yes, you can be in a classroom, and you've got to do the left brain stuff, but you can be in your right brain doing it and using your imagination, etc. And of course, they actually learn that what I used to do sometimes when I hate sitting in lectures, and listening to other people talk. I like to do the talking, not other people. And when I had to do it, because there was compulsory conferences I had to go to, I used to get in my workshop and hang out with my mates in my workshop, and then put one of my guides at the front to listen to the lecture. And I did not listen to a thing of the lecture, but my guide did, so it all registered. And if we had to sit an exam or test later on, or people asking me questions, I could tell them more about that lecture than anyone else in the room. And kids can do the same thing. So it's a great way of being able to goof off and still do a lot of work, actually.
Oh, there we are. And it is it's that having that creativity, that when you are relaxed and you're not stressed, that you do learn more, you engage on a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you stay relaxed no matter what you're doing, your health is going to be far, far better, because stress is the #1 cause of disease. And hence why MindScape gets very heavily involved in healthcare as well.
And of course, operating from the alpha state, the brainwave state, and MindScape, that relaxes the whole body-mind.
Yeah, it's very dramatic. They've done a lot of tests on that and shown that going into MindScape and being in your workshop, your brainwaves can go a lot deeper than most meditation techniques, especially when you've done it for a while. So it's been exciting, and it's still an exciting trip, because we're gradually expanding its uses, and some of the uses are really quite extraordinary.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for, #1, developing the system, and it is an amazing package, and so easy, as you say, for any person to implement in their lives.
Well, I've taught 4-year-olds to do it.
Well, there we are.
And so, if you've got the mentality of a 4-year-old or higher, you're fine.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time, John. I really appreciate it. And thank you for bringing MindScape to make it available to everyone. Thank you.